All right. Well, welcome to another episode here at the Wealthy Ironworker Podcast. Now, today's podcast episode, I got a question for you, the listener. Do you know what you want to do for a living? Because today, we're going to be talking about how now is the best time to get into the trades. And if you are looking for a job, if you're looking for a career, looking for a career change, you want to be more fulfilled in whatever you're doing, you want something that's going to pay good benefits, etc. There's a lot of variables, but I'm telling you today in this podcast episode that now is the best time to get into the trades. All right. So come on in. Let's join in on the studio discussion and let's take it away. All right. Now, there is a saying that a lot of people, if you've been around anybody who likes to garden, for example, you'll hear this saying quite a bit. But there's an old saying that says something to the effect of, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. And that analogy, we ought to be able to really understand this. And if I had planted a tree 20 years ago, or if somebody had planted a tree 20 years ago, then I could be sitting under its shade today. But the next best time to plant that tree is now, because it's in my mind. Well, that same, analogy, if you will, we can apply that to the trades. And so, as a matter of fact, it's also on the article form. 20 years ago was the best time to get into the trades. The next best time is now. All right. And the title of this podcast episode, Now, N-O-W capital, is the best time to get into the trades. So we're going to, kind of unpack that. We're going to talk about why that is. But before we do that, I want to talk about why 20 years ago was the best time to get into the trades. For those of you who are relatively, you've been with me since the beginning of the podcast, or if you've been listening, reading some of the articles on the website, you intuitively know some of the things that I'm going to be talking about here. But there is a shortage in the trades. And it's not solely, but it's primarily driven because of the retirement of the baby boomers, which we'll talk about in a second. But as they're retiring, the shortage into the trades grows. Now, this is a failure on a lot of this tight labor market, this tightness. It's a failure on a lot of different fronts of us to see the writing on the wall. And some of us, in the industry have, but some of us have not, taken enough steps, if you will, to adequately try and address it. And when we do, and I've talked about this before as well, but when we do, we toss out these empty platitudes and don't really take a really good look in the mirror and go, well, maybe I'm part of the problem. And again, I don't want to hijack this podcast episode, but that's certainly a discussion that needs to be had. But 20 years ago was the best time to get into the trades. And here's why. If you are a, let's say, 38 to 45-year-old individual who's in the trades, you're working, and you've been in the trades 20 years, you are in what I would say is a golden position. You are fewer in nature. When you talk to people out in the trades, they will tell you, okay, well, and you'll see this. You can have conversations with people, but you can also see this. We have a lot of latter 20s, like 25 to 30 is the range that I would say. And then we have 50 plus. And those 50 plus, you got some Gen Xers, some older Gen Xers, and especially baby boomers who are going to retire. And we have a gap. We have an age gap, and we've had one for a while. And that's a very systemically created problem that we help to create. And it's unfortunate, but it's what it is. Now, if you were one of those individuals who, through some means or methods, ended up being in the trades, well, kudos to you, because the companies and the industry as a whole will be relying on you for the next 20 years, no doubt. You will be bridging a gap that is so massive that if we're not careful, we are going to see a complete implosion when it comes to the largest industry in the world, which is construction. Now, we're primarily talking about here in the States, but that's what you're going to see, I think. A massive one if we're not very intentional about, changing the trajectory of the industry. So now, 20 years ago, 20 years ago was the best time to get in, because now you've got 20 years of experience and you've got 20 to 25 years, or maybe more, depending on how much you want to work. You have a lot to offer the industry for yourself and other people, right? That's a different podcast episode, but it is one that is massively underrepresented, and that's mentoring. We'll get into that one later. But 20 years ago was the best time. Now's the next best time, because now's the time to do it. So if you're a young person and you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I've been interested about the trades, I just don't know enough. Well, it's time to get off your duff and really, let's say rubber meets the road. Let's begin this conversation. And it also, if you're looking for a career change, if you feel like the career you're in, and just pick it, because I'm not going to make a guess, but if you feel like the career you're in is not going to net you what you want, maybe you feel like, you enjoy working with your hands. And that's one of the great crimes, I think, of our culture, is that a lot of little boys, when they're young, they're always playing with dump trucks and in the construction, they see it. They see the built environment and they're intrigued by it. And yet, from a culture, the largest industry in the world, it's devalued over and over and over again, when what we really should be doing is celebrating it like it's nobody's business. Because if the industry and everybody that comprises it just went home for a couple of weeks, the country would come to a grinding halt. Like, I'm talking, it would grinding halt. It would be cataclysmic, and yet we don't give the trades the respect that they really deserve. Okay. But let's just say that you ended up listening to the crowd and you decided, all right, well, I'm going to go in engineering, or I'm going to go into construction management, or whatever. I remember one day at a forum where there were some GCs around, and they were talking about their supervision, like superintendents and project managers. And half of them came from in the field. They promoted from within, which is great. I actually, encourage that greatly. But the other half came from office. It came from project managers. It came from engineers and whatnot. Historically, a lot of your construction managers have been civil engineers. And the reason why the number one reason why, is that they would hire individuals, let's say on an intern basis, and they would come work for them. And you know what they found out? They found out they really enjoyed being in the field. They enjoyed the interaction. They enjoyed the people. They enjoyed the built environment, the same built environment that doesn't get the respect. When they got a hold of it and they got in it, they enjoyed it. So maybe that's you. And maybe you're like, I don't want to be stuck behind a desk. Well, maybe you want to be a field engineer then, or you want to upset the apple cart. I was talking to a contractor the other day, and I can't wait to have a conversation with this guy one-on-one, but he's a mechanical engineer, and he's a millwright by trade. I think that's fantastic. And you know what he said? He didn't tell me this, but I heard it through third party. He said, I can't find anyone who's going to give me the benefits that I'm getting right now. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I have been talking about this forever. I'm clearly not getting the message out enough, so I need to talk about it more. So if you're in one of those jobs and you're like, man, I want to, explore something else. Hey, listen, let's have a conversation. You can go to the contact page, fill it out, and I'll send you an email. We can get back and forth. Now, since I say that now is the time to get into the trades, what are some of the reasons why, and what does that look like? Number one, the gray wave. The retirement of the baby boomers. The gray wave is, I got gray hair. I'm looking to wave myself out of the picture, sit on back, and maybe enjoy some retirement. And I'm going to tell you, kudos to you. Okay. The built environment from the trades perspective, the building trades perspective, is a very rough industry. I'm not just effectively trading my time and my labor for money. I mean, that might be the case. That certainly is the case. Like, let's say if you're in the office environment. But I'm also trading my health, my body, right? They're very labor intensive. They have to be done. We have to have the trades. And so I think one of the things that we ought to be really celebrating is when someone gets to retirement age, because that's where I want to be as well. And so it's also one of the reasons why I think you should seriously consider being a union member, because you're going to get benefits that you don't. And I've never heard anybody say they wish they'd have saved more or save less, for retirement. Everybody's always said they wish they saved more. So the gray wave is happening. Those individuals are going to, to retirement, and it's well deserved. Okay. My caveat, if that's you and you're listening to this podcast just because you want to listen to something good, I would say make sure you have hobbies so that you don't go to that steep decline when you do go to retire. But for those of us who are listening and you are interested in getting your son, your daughter, your nephew, your niece, your neighbor's kid, you want to talk to those in the trades, trade schools at like the high school level and whatnot. The gray wave is happening right now. We're about 500,000 to 600,000 short, depending on who you listen to. In a decade, when the latter half of the baby boomers retire, you're looking at about 2 to 3 million. That's pretty substantial. And here's the rub: is that this isn't replaced by just throwing warm bodies at anything. That's where you have industry wonks who are morons that think, okay, well, let's loosen the restrictions for apprenticeships and training, and we'll just throw warm bodies. No, this is when you are in the trades and you are out in the field. The last thing that you need to do is reduce quality on training. You actually need to increase it, because there are a number of things that could end your life out in the trades. This idea that I don't want to segue too much into this, but this idea that the business owner is the only one who takes risks is not true at all when it comes to the construction industry. You and I take a risk every day going out into the field. You want to know why? Because it could be our last. And it could be nothing that you do on your own. It could be somebody else. And it could be somebody else who had reduced quality because morons who have the ear of people who they shouldn't advocate for reduced training so that they could increase the number of people. No, those registered apprenticeship programs, they can take in multiple people. We don't have to reduce quality. So don't listen to people who promote that kind of stuff. But the gray wave is happening. And you don't overcome this skilled, tight labor market shortage in a year. It's not going to happen. It's going to take a very systemic plan that's intentional by the industry and all parties involved, the contractors, registered apprenticeship programs, union halls, etc., that are bringing these people in, training them and whatnot. All right. So the gray wave is happening, and we're going to have to be very intentional about changing things up. All right. The second point that I talk about here is going to be college degree saturation. Now, if you didn't already know this, all right, this platform is not, and I want to make sure I stress this, but this platform is not anti-higher education. I cannot stress it's not anti-higher education. You are actually listening to somebody who has a construction management, bachelor's, and I was working on a master's because I actually enjoy learning. So we're not anti-higher education. I'm anti you have to go to college to get a good job. And that is a very prominent thread that's weaved in our culture today. Every young person that you talk to seems to have been told this over and over and over again. You got to go to college to get a good job. You got to go to college to get a good job. And, you want to say it's well-intentioned or not. This is a discussion that I don't want to really dive into on this podcast episode, but the fallout from this thought process and this systemic talking point is that the market is saturated with people who have degrees. And the reason why is because we've denigrated the trades for 4 decades now, and we've continually pushed college. At the same time, as if that wasn't bad enough, but at the same time, what has really happened is educational quality has decreased to allow the massive influx of people coming in to get an education. And so the same it's almost like inflation, right? The same education you're getting today is not the same education you'd have got 25 years ago. It's cheapened today. It's not just about money, but it's about the quality of education. As a result, scores of people, and this is a different podcast in all of itself, but scores of people are economic slaves to the loan machine. The total amount that is owed from a tuition base is $1.77 trillion with a T. That's a lot of money. And if you're listening to this podcast and you went to college and you didn't go into one of the STEM fields, you didn't go into, let's say, engineering or whatever, you decided to take something obscure, you know what I'm talking about. Consequently, you're also probably the one I want you to listen to, and I want you to seriously consider the trades. It's going to be different. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. All right. So the college degree saturation, it's a simple economic law, supply and demand is really what it boils down to. And unfortunately, what has happened is well-intentioned people conflated that, okay, well, people who had a good job had a college degree. Therefore, you must need a college degree to get a good job. And it's not true. And so now the market's saturated, and it's not a viable way, if you will, to really pursue a career. The third point, and I want to piggyback off of this college degree saturation thing. What it does is it creates opportunity. And I'm going to save the opportunity talking point for like the very end, because all of what we're talking about creates a very robust opportunity for those of you who are interested in getting into the trades. But the college degree saturation also, what it does when you see that is I'm finding that there are individuals, let me say it this way. I'm finding that there are more and more individuals who went to, let's say, to be an engineer, solely because of they thought they were pursuing an opportunity. Well, if you are one of those individuals and you're interested in using your engineer degree, but you also are looking for something that's fulfilling, I can't. There's an article on the website called Job Satisfaction. And the trades routinely have one of the highest percentages of people who have job satisfaction. And so maybe you're like one of those individuals I talked about a few minutes earlier, where you went to, let's say, be an engineer, or you did construction management or project management, and you might want to give the trades a try. Maybe you want to intern or talk to general contractors or talk to trade contractors. And you want to get an experience. You want to be a field engineer. You want to see what that's like. You want to know what other kind of opportunities are out there. Listen, I'm telling you now, there's plenty of it. And you might be a part of that college degree saturation, but there's a way, if you will, that you can do some great work, feel fulfilled in what you're doing, and then intentionally begin to pay down your loans, because the likelihood and that you're going to find a job. I remember in one of the previous podcast episodes, I talked about how 51% of the survey said that they would rather be a barista than a welder. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like, what does that tell me, not only about the reputation that the trades unfairly have, but what does that tell me about people's comfort level? You must be really, really comfortable in whatever situation you're in, with enormous amount of debt and whatever. So for those of you who are, you are part of, let's say you got engineer degree, you got project management degrees, whatever, and maybe you want to be in the field. I'll tell you why. The benefits, not just the job satisfaction, but tangible, like your health insurance, your retirement, your work, like all of these benefits, when you seriously sit down and consider it, the likelihood is the firm that you're working for probably, they may not be paying you the same level that you could get by being somebody in the field. And you bring extra value, right? Because not only are you going to have the skills in the field, but you also have, let's say, the engineering capacity or capability. That's an extra tool in your toolbox. So I would seriously consider it if you're a part of that college degree saturation, and you have a degree where you can directly, seriously consider it for sure. Now, the third point in this whole, now is the time to get into the trades, is the what I'm going to say is the greater diversity. If you notice, all right, for those of you who are watching, for those of you who are listening, you'll just have to, you can go over to the website and you can check out any of it on YouTube or Rumble. But there's a lot of people who are coming into the trades, and guess what? They don't look like me. That's perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, I celebrate it. Different people, when you are in a situation, you approach problems in a different way. You have different backgrounds. You have different thought processes. And let's be honest with all of us. We all have our biases to some degree, right? We bring all of that into the trades. And I think that the increased problems and the increased difficulty that we are having when it comes to, let's say, recruitment and whatnot, is something that we could use more voices, more intentionality, if you will. I'm going to be honest here. There are people that I've talked to who are a little older, and much of what I say sometimes falls on deaf ears because they are looking to ride their boat off into the sunset, and they think a problem that is as systemic as it is, which is the recruitment and retention issue we have, is something that young bucks will figure out, or it's not my problem or whatever, and it's everybody's problem. I mean, it's everybody's problem. And so with the greater diversity, let's say you open, I don't want to say open the floodgates because that's the wrong terminology, but you are bringing in more people who have different thought processes that can evaluate problems and come up with new ideas that is desperately needed in an industry. And so I think it's a fantastic thing. As a matter of fact, I've been working with multiple companies to kind of get them established in other places and help them out and do all these other things. And so with the greater diversity comes greater opportunity and greater ideas. We need some fresh thinking. We need some outside the box thinking. Now, look, the world, it takes everybody, right? It takes all kinds of different people to sit here and have conversations. And we need people who think inside the box, and we desperately need people who think outside the box. And so for those of you who, you see change and you don't like change, most people don't, right? But let's be honest for a second here. And let's understand that we need fresh ideas. And somebody who's been in this industry a while, as somebody who's been in and talking to you who might have been in this industry in a while, there's a lot of benefit from the greater diversification. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity and ideas that can come out of people who maybe didn't grow up the same way you did. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So with the greater diversification, you're going to see more. You're starting to see the trades push more women, and you are seeing. I mean, listen, Hispanics alone, as an ethnicity, they are the largest ethnicity to get into the trades. And when I say trades, we're compiling. We're adding in residential, we're adding in commercial and industrial. We're bringing them all together. We're compiling them all. And what comprises the trades, all three of those areas, Hispanics are 30% of the entire industry in this country. 30%. That is massive, right? And so they got some ideas. And they work hard, and they're bringing things to the table, and we ought to be celebrating it. And what it's doing, all this opportunity is, it's opportunity for people. When you see enormous numbers of individuals retiring, now you're seeing this seismic shift in the industry. And what's really happening is that seismic shift is not just people coming in or the ability for people to come in and take certain positions. They also bring with them the influence to change or, kind of steer the ship, if you will, for better. Where, maybe, and here's one way that it's happening is with technology, right? And what's happening is that younger people are coming in. This is another point, right? Now is the time to get into the trades, is that you're starting to see the adoption of technology. Why? Why is that? I will tell you one of the main reasons why. It's all of the older folks who have towed the line for as decades, you might as well say decades. They're retiring, and their aversion to technology. I know some people who they don't even have a real email address. I mean, they have one, but they have it from a company perspective. But the guys that I'm talking about, you get a one sentence reply. They would much rather pick up the phone. That's what they're comfortable with. Well, as those people who have been at the head of the industry retire, what is happening is that younger people are coming in. And when younger people come in, they bring in their, I want to say love, but their comfortability with technology. They grew up with it. And that's the reality. Older millennials, especially the oldest millennials like myself, they grew up without technology, but they're comfortable using it. Everybody else past us, in the in the age gap that's missing in the industry, and then all those younger people that are coming in mid 20s to 30, they are so comfortable with technology. I mean, they right, wrong, or indifferent, they grew up with it, and they bring that technology with them and their fresh ideas, right, into an industry that has long held off change. And one of the major reasons they have long held off change is because the industry is nothing more than the individuals who comprise the actual industry. So it's been a lot of older people at the head. Well, they're retiring. And now those of us who are coming up that, had 20 years of experience are now beginning to get into those various positions, superintendent and the like. All of these positions are, I don't want to say being vacated, but as people retire, the opportunity to not just get a job, but get a nice position as well, work your way through it, is becoming available. And technology is coming with these people. And that's what you're seeing. You're starting to see BIM. You're starting to see Bluebeam. You're starting to see, list your technology, right? I mean, if you'd have told me 15 years ago we'd be using drones to the degree that we're using them now, I'd have been like, nah, I don't see it. Not because I don't see the technology. It's because I can't see the adoption into the industry. But as people who are gatekeepers, if you will, as they begin to retire and go off into the sunset and enjoy retirement, you're beginning to see greater adoption of technology. And to me, that's a good thing. I think it's long time that stuff begins to happen. All right. Now, when we take all of this, we take all the people who are retiring, which, remember, we're talking about now is the best time to get into the trades. Why is it? It's because the older people are retiring and they're creating those positions. It's because the market is saturated with college degrees. It's because of the greater diversification into our industry. It is because of greater technology adaptation. All of that, and there are some other talking points that I didn't mention, but all of that couples together to create what I would say is a perfect storm for you, the potential individual, to seriously consider an opportunity in the trades. There is a lot going on. We have a significant amount of trouble just bringing in people to replace those who are retiring. And we're not even doing that, to be honest with you. We're not even doing that. Not to mention all of the infrastructure investment that is looking to take place in the next, decade or two, whatever it happens to be. And then on top of that, you have all of the manufacturing onshoring. If the pandemic taught us anything, it's how, relatively fragile the supply chain is. The global supply chain is really fragile. And so what you're starting to see with, chips and different things, you're starting to see people and companies and entities begin to remanufacture things here in the United States, because they were making them overseas and bringing them right back over here. And so you're starting to see that as well. And so all of those things, coupled with the just anemic or normal, let's say 2 to 3% growth the actual industry might normally experience if it wasn't for the robust, investment, we have I cannot stress it enough, the opportunity that's there is massive. In the 22 years that I've been in, I've seen economic times up and down, up and down. I've seen it. I've seen it where we've grown. We've got more work than what we can handle. And so people were called out of retirement and we've had to push jobs off, et cetera. But I've never seen it like this. I've never seen it where the work is so abundant and it's everywhere, and it's projected to be massive for a long time to come. And one of the major reasons is because of the gray wave, the baby boomers retiring. So it's a massive opportunity. So like I said at the onset of this podcast, 20 years ago was the best time to get into the trades. The next best time is now. Ample opportunity. And if you are interested, you can leave a comment or you can go over to thewealthyironworker.com. Go to the contact page, fill it out, get in touch with me. I'll get you connected with anybody that I think you might, whether, depending on the trade that you're interested in or whatever. We can begin this conversation. If you have more questions, I'm looking to do another Q&A. session coming up. So if you have some more questions, be sure to drop them into the comments or on the contact page. Let me know and let your voice be heard. All right. So there it is. 20 years ago was the best time to get into the trades. Now is the next best time. This is the Wealthy Ironworker Podcast. Over and out.